Welcome to Remix EQ Live, amplifying equity with the remix of information, interviews, and inspiration. I'm your host, Dr. Erika Tate, and today I'm broadcasting from Savannah, Georgia, where I live. For those joining us today, please drop a greeting of choice in the comments. Let us know where you are joining from and the equity work that you do or aspire to do. And remember, Remix EQ Live is an experience that's meant to be shared. So I encourage you to hit the share and invite buttons and invite your people, your network, your family, your friends, your peeps to join our Remix EQ community. And while those comments are flowing in and those invitations are flowing out, I want to remind you that Remix EQ Live offers us the opportunity to connect and build community with each other around the equity work being performed throughout the world. And we do this by centering the work. That is, our guests and viewers share examples of what they do in their role or position as a way to illustrate the innovative and effective ways they advance equity in the spaces in which they live, work, and play. Throughout the show and in the comments, I invite you to also share what you do to make the world a more just place. Today, we are revisiting a topic from our Season 3 Remix EQ Live opener, community participation. So, quick recap. I, along with my team, put on our research and evaluation hats, which we use to evaluate programs for nonprofits and other mission driven organizations. We conducted a small community participation study to glean some insights into how our Remix EQ community members engaged during and after our live broadcast. Across seasons 1 and 2, we identified 78 viewers as our most engaged. This means they wrote comments, reshared the LinkedIn Live event before, during, or after the live broadcast, or directly communicated with me about their experiences watching the show. And we documented 162 interactions and encoded their engagement as greetings and gratitudes, such as, "Hi, I'm Erica, joining from Savannah, Georgia, where I live." Or, "Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your work. I love learning from you today." We also determined whether comments were categorized as amplifying content. This is where you repeat or quote content shared by guests, hosts, or other Remix EQ community members, or you co-sign or agree to content like, "Yes, Black women need to be at the data table." We also categorize comments as sharing content, which is when Remix EQ community members share their expertise or their experiences. This may look like them sharing observations or examples from the communities in which they work or serve, but also it could be describing equity driven strategies or resources, or identifying challenges such as falling into a deficit mindset when teaching in schools. Our third category was asking questions. This is when our guests ask questions of this is when our Remix EQ community members ask questions of our guests or each other. We also noted when Remix EQ members invited their personal and professional networks to watch, listen, or engage in the show. And we use these engagement behaviors to compose 3 modes or roles of participation for Remix EQ community members: acknowledgers, discussants, and ambassadors. So we'll talk about each of these in the next segment. So for those who are just joining us, this is Remix EQ Live, where we are amplifying equity through a remix of information, interviews, and inspiration. Thank you for sharing and inviting others to tune in. And of course, I invite you to interact with us. Post comments, ask questions as we revisit community participation during this episode. You are part of the Remix EQ Live experience. You are part of the Remix EQ community. In today's episode, I'm using data from our Remix EQ Impact Report to discuss community participation. This discussion is intended to prompt you, us to consider how we can create more inclusive spaces that encourage or support community members to participate in ways that align with our goals. So, this could be a learning community in your classroom or school with goals to plan and deliver equitable and effective instruction that meets the needs of every learner. It could be a local community in which you work in or serve that's defined by neighborhood streets or regional connections that seek to increase access to resources such as public transportation or affordable, healthy foods. Or it could be a community that is defined by race, gender, or profession, like Black women in STEM, working to create spaces that nurture supportive relationships and foster a sense of belonging. This episode is an opportunity to reflect on your community and how you can encourage and support meaningful community participation. So, throughout the show, I invite you to share your observations, insights, and examples in the comments. So, using Remix EQ as the example. The goal of Remix is to build community among professionals who center equity in their work, to showcase their approaches, celebrate their accomplishments. And most of all, we aim to create and hold space for us to listen and learn from each other as we amplify our stories about how we make the world a more just place. As I mentioned earlier, through our community participation study, we identified three participation modes that enable us to progress toward our goals: acknowledgers, discussants, and ambassadors. So let's get to it. On average, across seasons 1 and 2, 40% of our most engaged viewers participated as acknowledgers, those who greeted us at the top of the show and throughout and closed us out with gratitude. Why is the acknowledger mode of participation important for communities? One, acknowledgers show up. In a digital space like Remix EQ Live, the only way we know you are here is if you tell us. And often that's with a hello or a thank you or some type of appreciation for the experience with us. More importantly, when community members show up, they acknowledge the space, the community, and the importance of what's being discussed or what actions are being taken. They signal to others that this community space exists. We are open for connection. And for many of us who work toward equitable outcomes, that there is possibility for change. So, a question for us to consider when reflecting on the communities we work in or serve: how can we create opportunities for our community members to show up and acknowledge the importance of our work or the import of their participation in our work? As always, I invite you to share your insights and examples in the comments with our Remix EQ community. Remix EQ Live holds space for our community to dialogue with each other. Of course, there's the interview that happens during interview shows. I ask guests questions, they drop knowledge, they drop inspiration in the form of examples, stories, and reflections about how they advance equity in their communities. But also, I ask you throughout the show to greet us. Share in the comments where you are joining up from, the equity work you do or aspire to do, to interact with me, to interact with our guests, to interact with each other. And just to show that you mean it, I share those comments with viewers by placing them on my screen or in the broadcast. And for those who watch live, you already see that viewers are writing in the comments. So this adds another level of interactivity and connection. And for those who watch the recording, you confirm that there are others out there in the Remix EQ verse who share your interest and passion for making the world a more just place. For many of us in the Remix EQ community, we are not strangers to feeling excluded or othered in the places we live, work, and play. Whether it's racial or gendered, circumstantial, or generational, we know that a look, a shift in body language, a thoughtless comment, or failure to listen can rob us of our sense of belonging. Knowing that consistent action over time leads to inclusion, I take every opportunity I can to celebrate those in our communities, whether it's with pom pom, shout outs, or featuring the work of those in our community. I hope it says you are welcome, you are seen, you are heard, and you are celebrated. Our next Remix EQ community participation mode is Discussants. Nearly a third of our most engaged viewers participated as discussants. They amplified content, they shared their expertise and experience, and they asked questions. Why is the discussants mode of participation important for communities? One, these community members drive the dialogue, the action. They signal to others what ideas are being taken up and by whom, by reiterating, co signing, or agreeing to comments or experiences shared within the community. They are our internal amplifiers. Discussants push our thinking. Their questions may prompt us to consider new perspectives or relationships between people and places, power and influence. They also prompt us to consider alternative pathways to our approach. They nudge us to reflect on or rethink our assumptions and expectations of what we think is necessary for change. So, another question for us to consider when reflecting on the communities we work in or serve. How can we facilitate opportunities for our community members to contribute to the conversation and action in a meaningful way that moves our community toward its collective goals? Of course, I invite you to share your insights and examples in the comments with our Remix EQ community. I think about this a lot for Remix EQ and for my work in classrooms when I'm coaching teachers to facilitate more equitable academic discussions. I always consider how culture and tools can create opportunity. Like we discussed before, consistently welcoming people and considering their ideas is key to fostering a culture that supports an exchange of ideas and experiences and creates opportunities for community members to share, ask questions, and take action. But we also have the chance to consider how our tools create opportunities for discussion with the purpose of learning from each other. We are participating in a digital platform. And right now, in real time, we are connected to people across the world, which offers us an opportunity to listen and learn from each other. This same digital platform creates opportunities to engage in discussion before and after each episode. For example, you can always share or ask questions after the live broadcast ends, or if you are watching the recording. Guests and other community members can respond when convenient, or more than often when they complete their thinking. You can also take me out your business and connect with guests and community members via their DMs or emails. And I know that several of you are already doing this. One practice that we are trying out this season is pinning our community ask when we promote the show. So, based on the topic, we will ask you to share related examples or experiences or to post questions in the comments of the event prior to or after the show or by DMing me. We can either incorporate these into interviews with our guests or create post show opportunities for guests and other members to review and respond to each other. We want to engage you, your thinking, your experiences, so we are working to make sure that we make use of the tools available to create additional and meaningful opportunities for continued professional dialogue in our Remix EQ community that will hopefully lead to more equitable outcomes within and across communities. Now, our final Remix EQ participation mode is ambassadors. 28% of our most engaged viewers are ambassadors. That is, they invite others to join the Remix EQ community by sharing the Remix EQ live event before, during, or after the show. sometimes sharing what they learned or amplify the very important work of our guest. And I also wanted to note that from season 1 to season 2, ambassadors increased by 40%, which is really exciting. Why is the ambassador mode of participation important for communities? If discussants are our internal amplifiers, then ambassadors are external amplifiers. Ambassadors extend the reach of the community to grow it. They bring to us people from their personal and professional networks. Cultivating ambassadors is a strategy for growth, and it's also a signal that a community offers a valuable experience that is worth building. So, the final question for us to consider when reflecting on the communities we work in and serve: how can we empower our community members to broaden and grow our reach in ways that matter to us and our community? Yes, yes. I invite you to share your insights, examples, observation notes in the comments with our Remix EQ community right now or after the live broadcast ends. The short answer is ask. For example, this might sound familiar. And remember, Remix EQ Live is an experience that's meant to be shared. I encourage you to hit the share and invite buttons and invite your people, your network, your family, your friends, your peeps to join our Remix EQ community today. It is also important to ask your community members about their experiences. Their opinions likely reflect those of their colleagues and peers. And we did this. We surveyed our most engaged Remix EQ Live viewers, and we discovered a little bit about who they are and why they tune in. Of our 15 survey respondents, 100% share their top reasons for tuning into Remix EQ, and 87% provided more than 3 reasons for why they tuned in. Our top answers: they are interested in equity related topics, and they work in a field related to specific topics discussed on the show. And this is key for us since we are building a community of professionals who center equity in their work or aspire to do so. And more than half want to learn about a specific topic discussed on the show and appreciate that Remix EQ Live features equity related topics in an understandable and relatable manner. And it showcases equity driven experts and perspectives across different contexts and fields. As a nascent community, it's exciting to see these reasons for tuning in align with the Remix EQ community goals. And because of this, we'll keep doing what we're doing, holding space for important conversations with amazing equity driven experts and with you. And we're committed to identifying new ways to nurture and engage our community of professionals who center equity in their work or aspire to do so in order to amplify their expertise and experiences, frameworks, and examples that inform and inspire us to make the world a more just place. So, as we come to a close, I thank you for your participation in our Remix EQ community. Whether you're an acknowledger who shows up to let us know you're here, making visible an audience, a community of listeners and learners, a discussant contributing to our conversation, our professional dialogue about how to make meaningful and impactful change in our communities, or an ambassador who shares the good news of Remix EQ Live with your personal and professional networks, growing our Remix EQ community, or all 3. Thank you. This is how we amplify the important work that leads to equitable outcomes by bringing attention to the people who do this work, as well as their perspectives and approaches. Your comments and questions add examples, strategies, and tools to our professional repertoire and push us to reflect on our practice and the people and places we serve. And of course, make the world a more just place. So thank you. And just a reminder, I'll be back on Friday, March 10th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern for another Remix EQ Live episode where we will discuss the intersectional experiences of Black women in computing with doctors Chiquita O. Thomas and Yolanda Rankin. So watch your feed, check your inbox so you have the details to tune in to the next show. And of course, share these deets with your peeps. Until then, visit the Remix EQ Live webpage for episode recordings and more information about our inspiring guests and upcoming shows. Discover new ways to support the Remix EQ community via donation or purchasing merch like our Amplify notebook. Upcoming events include an April weekend work along for planning inclusive evaluation for all my mission driven leaders who do good work. And while you're there, please poke around the website and learn more about my business, Blue Knowledge, and our growing family of brands and services, which advances equity in schools and communities. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. And of course, I invite you to connect with me in this space too. Thank you, Remix EQ community, for your participation, your engagement, your comments, and your rally, which is how we recognize, appreciate, learn, love, and take care of you as you work to make the world a more just place. I'm your host, Dr. Erika Tate, and this is Remix EQ Live. See you next time.